It's Friday, April 5th, which means it's time for another episode of Ask Us Anything. And today we're doing something different. It is a special themed episode of Ask Us Anything. The brand new Ghostbusters movie gets released in Malaysian cinemas next week. And we thought we'd have a little fun and ask you to ask us all of your Ghostbusters questions. And boy, did you come through. There were a lot of Ghostbusters questions. I think we can answer all of them, or at least try to. But we're going to kick things off with Jonathan B.W. Koo, who asks, what's your favorite piece of Ghostbusters media? I'm quite partial to the 2009 video game myself, but I'm not sure if that's still within canonicity.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
here's the thing, Bahir, something you may not know. We often talk about the Ghostbusters movies, right? So there's Ghostbusters 1 and 2, and then there's the all-female reboot, or Ghostbusters Answer the Call, which came out in 2016, and then we have Afterlife and Frozen Empire. However, the Ghostbusters franchise has been going on in other ways, kind of non-stop from the time the movie came out, like the first movie back in 1984. Like the real Ghostbusters cartoon had 7 seasons, 140 episodes. Then there was the Extreme Ghostbusters cartoon. Like I never watched that because I think I was at university already at the time. And I think a lot of younger audiences know the Ghostbusters from that cartoon and love it. There have been comics that have been going on for years. I think the real Ghostbusters comic had like 190 or 200 issues. There are novels. There have been video games from 1984 all the way to 2023. Like a new VR Ghostbusters game exists from 2023. So Ghostbusters has been in the pop culture consciousness for a long time, despite the movies being so far apart.
Yes. Yep.
The original cast has come back to like voice video games and so on and so forth. So they've been involved in some way throughout the years too. So there's a lot of freaking Ghostbusters media.
There's a lot of Ghostbusters, yeah. I didn't know about that. I didn't know about a lot of that. I kind of just assumed of the big stuff. And I mean, of course, if I think about it, yeah, there probably would be books. But I always just assumed there would be novelizations of the films. But they are just further adventures of the Ghostbusters?
The novels are mostly novelizations of the film.
Okay.
I think in 2004, I haven't read this one, but there was a book called Ghostbusters The Return or something like that. And I'm not sure what that is. I think that may be like an unofficial Ghostbusters 3 with the original crew, but I need to look it up. But video games, everything, like Sega Genesis, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, PC.
I think I've played with the Sega versions because I was a Sega kid growing up.
Right.
I don't know this 2009 video game.
Oh, okay. So I'm with Jonathan on this. That's the video game that I liked the most. That was on the PlayStation 3, I want to say.
Oh.
And that was a super fun game. There was a game that came out a couple of years ago, just after the pandemic, called Spirits Unleashed. And it was for the PS4 and PS5, but I didn't buy it. The only reason I know about it is because I think Rahul Kohli, the actor, did like a bunch of voices for it.
Right. Yes.
He was promoting it heavily on his social media, but I didn't pick up that game, although it looked pretty interesting. Like it looked like one of those new crew of Ghostbusters, and you go off and hunt spirits and stuff.
I remember watching the trailers of that.
For me, though, like if you ask me favorite piece of Ghostbusters media, I will have to go back to the movies because I think those just had the most impact. And as much as I like some of the video games I've played and even the cartoon and the comics, like there's some pretty fun comics too.
Yeah.
Nothing has hooked me emotionally as much as Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2.
Followed closely by the animated show?
The real Ghostbusters.
The real Ghostbusters, yeah. Because I had a bunch of those toys growing up.
Did you have like the Volkswagen that would convert?
No, I didn't. I just had the characters. So like, I just love the fact that you just twist the knob in the back and you see the proton packs and the rays just go out. I just thought it was like really cool. For me, the cartoon holds a special place in my heart only because I played with a lot of those toys.
As a kid, I remember going to Toys R Us. Like my parents never got me the proton pack.
Oh, God.
And I would just walk past that shelf every time. And it was like on the bottom shelf, but it was like the proton pack.
Yeah.
The thing is, I've seen it since. And I think I understand why. It's really cheap looking. I remember it looking amazing as a kid.
Oh, no. Yeah. I mean, as a kid, just yellow plastic looks great.
I think my parents might have picked up the box and gone, we're paying how much for this piece of crap?
Sorry, I know we only just started and we're already going off the rails here, but I want to tack on a question to Jonathan's question here. Okay? What is your favorite piece of Ghostbusters memorabilia? Of all the things in the Ghostbusters movies, what is the memorabilia you would like to have? What is a piece of thing? What is a thing that you'd want?
Oh, mate, it's got to be Ecto 1.
Oh.
I want the freaking car. I mean, proton packs are good and all,
Yeah.
but I'm a little scared about walking around with a nuclear reactor on my back. So, the car, however, driving around KL in that thing. I mean, the closest thing I have to that now is that on my ways, I have switched to the Ghostbusters Frozen Empire profile. So my car looks like Ecto 1 and I got raised stands guiding me through the streets of KL. So that's pretty cool.
Ecto 1's great. I've always been partial to the trap. I don't know why.
The trap is cool though.
I love the proton pack and I want a proton pack, but I feel like not only is the trap more achievable financially, potentially, but also I just like the way it looks. I'm not even talking about the newer ones. I'm talking about the old ones where you had to throw on the ground with a cable and you had to press. Yeah, that was great. I want one of those.
I will send you a link to the Hasbro Pulse website.
Oh, it's okay, dude.
There's a classic trap.
I know.
On
I've
sale.
Been there, done
Been
that.
there,
Bro.
huh?
Been there.
Just thought you might
Been
need
there.
a reminder.
No. Seen that. Been there. Yeah. Moving on. At My Tipsy Turvy asks, if you two were agents of Gozer, who would be the gatekeeper and who would be the keymaster?
This is a tricky one, man.
Oh,
I don't know.
I'm going to be a jerk and just sort of bounce the question back. Dear My Topsy Turvy, who do you think is the gatekeeper and who is the keymaster?
I think we will leave it at that.
All right, moving on.
At Leon Tan BG asks, I have a question. Are you a god?
If someone asks you if you're a god, you say yes.
I love that.
It's a great line.
It is a great line. At Gamma Ray 07, is this the start of a Ghostbusters cinematic universe?
God, I hope so.
Afterlife was supposed to be the start of a cinematic universe, and I think it made enough money that a sequel got greenlit. And Frozen Empire has already made more than $100 million, and it's only just opening in our part of the world. So there's potential for that to make a lot of money and hopefully grow the franchise even more. It feels like Sony is serious. They have Ghost Core set up, which is a production company that's just handling Ghostbusters stuff.
Can I just say the Ghost Core thing, which is essentially a production company set up by Columbia Pictures to just focus on Ghostbuster stuff, was set up in 2015. So it was set up to essentially push on and support the Paul Feig Ghostbusters, which didn't work. I'm glad they didn't just give up, because between 2015 and then they made that movie in 2016, financially it did okay, but critically not. They kept it going. I mean, they kept that brand up for about the next 6 years after that. So I kind of am hoping for more Ghostbuster stuff.
I think there will be more Ghostbusters stuff. I think there is so much potential in the franchise and the story. And we've seen from the video games and the spin-off comic books and all of that stuff that there are more stories to be told. And it's just a very interesting and fascinating world. Everyone likes ghosts and everyone likes ghost stories. And I think what makes Ghostbusters unique is that it's not like the Conjuring verse or other horror franchises. It's not out to scare you. It's actually out to show you a good time.
At Rabbit Hop and at Shadow Saru asks, if there's something strange in your neighborhood, who are you going to call?
So I spend a lot of time thinking about this. And
Yeah.
maybe police, but I don't know who to call. If there is something strange going on in the neighborhood.
Bomber.
Oh, actually, yeah. Would you call the police
Bomber.
first or the bomber first?
Depends on the kind of strangeness.
Yes.
I think if the strangeness comes in like physical form, then maybe police.
But what about Coconut carrying Bomos?
I don't have his number.
I'm sure we can find it.
Can Google on lah.
He's still on Twitter as Raja Bomo, right?
I don't know actually. I don't know. Was that always him?
I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know if he actually was on Twitter. I'm just assuming. If I called myself Raja Bomo, I would want to lock down those social media accounts.
Although actually, Umar, we haven't actually answered the question.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I don't know. I would call the police, I guess.
Maybe we need a Malaysian version of the Ghostbusters.
Oh.
Can I just say, I don't want to be racist. You know this is going to be good.
If you start a sentence by going, I don't want to be racist, I have Indian friends, but
I don't mean to be racist, But I feel like a Malaysian Ghostbusters needs a Bayi guy, like an old Bayi guy.
Oh.
Am I just being racist?
No. I don't think that's racist
It
at all.
feels no, but it feels like that's what a Malaysian Ghostbusters needs, like a Bayi guy, like a big Bayi guy, turban and the works, right?
I mean, let's put it this way, Bahir. If Astro ever makes a Malaysian Ghostbusters, you know they will have at least one stereotypical Bai character in it. It's a must for all of their movies, for sure. At Henan Lotters asks, what would your dream Ghostbusters crew look like? Pop culture characters only. I have one.
Sure.
Okay, if we're going with a core group of 4, like the traditional Ghostbusters, I would like the 2 boys from Supernatural,
Okay.
Russell Crowe's father remorse,
Mm-hmm.
and Zatanna.
I was having trouble coming up with my own team until I saw you put down Zatanna, and then I just went full on DC. So, like, my group would be John Constantine,
Oh, that's good.
Spectre, Etrigan, and Deadman.
Oh, that is a great DC-led Ghostbusters team.
Right? But
Etrigan is good.
Etrigan is the wild card. Etrigan is the wild card, I think, in that one. But I think your crew's great. I like the Russell Crowe thing. I didn't watch any Supernatural, so I don't know comments.
There's another character, but I thought it was too much of a deep cut. Back in
Sure.
the 90s, John Carpenter had a movie called Vampires, and James Woods was in it as a vampire hunter, and he was great. Now I think he's a crazy Trump supporter, but he was great in that movie.
I'm sure he was always a crazy Trump supporter.
That's a good point.
But yeah, thanks for that question. Now I'm going to spend the weekend thinking about that.
I might just go watch some episodes of Justice League Unlimited just to see Etrigan in action again.
VMT1103 asks, I may have missed this, but why was the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man a character in the franchise?
Dan Aykroyd. So Dan Aykroyd had come up with a whole bunch of wild and crazy ghosts and monsters in his original script. But the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man was something he came up with because he wanted something that could look cute and safe and cuddly, but then, under the right circumstances, be completely vicious.
Was there a story about how he actually wanted the Michelin Man but couldn't get the rights for it? Or didn't want to piss off the French or something?
Oh, I did not read that.
I thought I read that somewhere. I might be wrong, might have just been a 1989 rumor.
Oh, there were a lot of those. Pre-internet. There were all these stories that would go around.
Stories. Yeah.
We had no way of verifying it. And
no, of course not. Yeah.
I still believe some of those stories. At Damon Cadre asks, what type of content would you like to see with the Ghostbusters? I would like to see a Scott Pilgrim type movie. Well, there is a rumor that an animated Ghostbusters movie is in the works, and it's supposed to be by the same team as Spider-Verse and Mitchell's versus the Machines. So it's going to look pretty damn good if it actually happens, but I think that team is currently scrambling to finish the actual Spider-Verse movie, which was supposed to be in cinemas last week, by the way. I'm very sad that it wasn't.
Yeah.
Yes. So I think you might get your wish for an animated type Ghostbusters movie, but that's what I'm looking forward to as well. Like maybe a new TV series.
I would love to see a new TV series. I was going to say, I would love to see a new TV series in the vein of something like Lockwood and Co., or even something along the lines of like Teenage Bounty Hunter, which we loved. You know, it's this idea of like a small crew of ghost busting type thing, you know? It doesn't have to be the massive, like a big production. I'd love to see a small version of that.
Like for me, that's the kind of universe building that I really enjoy because movies are expensive and they take a very long time to make. And of course, you have all these big name stars. So you got to work around their schedules and scripts and all of that stuff. But in the meantime, in between films, I think you can tell really fun stories through comic books and TV shows and animated shows. I know they aren't cheap, but they're a lot cheaper than $100 million movie. So that's a nice way to kind of build out the universe in between films. And it's not a new idea. It's a very old idea. But I really hope that the Ghost Corps does that with Ghostbusters.
At Pajoka Fanatic 91 asks, the easiest question of all. If you are the filmmakers of the sequel, will you incorporate the 4 female Ghostbusters from the 2016 film into the current Ghostbusters team?
So, at Pajoka Fanatic 91, they've already done this in the comic books. And they've done it really fucking well.
Oh, okay.
which for me proves that the problem was always with the writing of that movie and nothing else. Seek out the comics. I think it was called Ghostbusters crossover or Ghostbusters cross or something. I can't remember now.
Was it a multiversal thing or was it like a
It was a
different town
multiversal thing. So at the end of the movie, in the post-credit scene, don't they kind of imply something about Gozer? And so it feels like they were hinting at the fact that the 2016 Ghostbusters took place in a different New York City, in a different universe. That's why when the original stars cameoed, they weren't Ghostbusters, they were a taxi driver and random people, right? Actually, it was done really well in the comic books, and it was a very smart way of doing it. And when you read those, you're like, oh, look, this is what could have been.
I mean, for me, my answer to Pajoka Fanatic 91 is easily no. And that's a character thing, right? It goes back to your statement about writing. I did not like any of the characters in that film. I didn't mind any of the women. I like Kristen Wiig.
Melissa McCarthy.
I'd love to see those women potentially coming into a Ghostbusters, being a ghost busting team from a different town, maybe if you wanted to. But those characters, I never want to see them ever again.
Yeah, forget that movie. It was badly executed. But we'll get to why with our last question. But first, at Lego Fan in PJ, this one apparently is especially for me.
Hey.
Because he seems to know you. And how you are much more prudent with your money than I am. Let's put it that way.
I have a surprising answer to this question, but go
Oh,
on.
you do? Okay.
Yes.
So he says, do you own any Lego Ghostbusters sets from 2014 onwards? That 2,000 plus piece Ecto 1, the Firehouse HQ, Venkman and Slimer Brickheads, caricatures, etc. Even those overpriced level and character packs, obviously for the toy bricks and not for the NFC token discs, as part of the 2015 to 17 Lego Dimensions Toys to Life video game.
Wow.
To answer your question, Lego Fan and PJ, I own all of those things. I even own the Ecto 1 from the all-female reboot.
Because you were so desperate for any Ghostbusters merchandise, weren't you?
Especially the Lego stuff. So going back to the question you asked earlier, where you had an addendum to Jonathan's question.
Sure, yes.
My favorite piece of Ghostbusters merch is the Lego Ecto 1. The big one, the new one, which they released. Only because I think I was so excited. I'm a big Lego fan, and I was so excited that they released the Ecto 1. So it's the DeLorean, the Ecto 1, and Optimus Prime, which I think had me the most excited because those were almost key moments from my childhood.
Yeah.
I've sold my Lego Dimension stuff because the game wasn't very good, and yes, it was a shameless cash grab. But yes, I have all of the Lego stuff. What is your surprising answer to this, Bahir?
My surprising answer to this is I convinced my mother to buy the Lego Firehouse.
I was there when you did it. Yes, you did. I found it in the store and I was like, Bahir, tell your mom she can come to Bangsa and buy it now.
Yes, I did. She bought it. Then she called me and my siblings over to build it together.
Your mother is a better person than me. I'd be like, nobody touch my shit. I am building this myself.
The Firehouse is a great, fun build.
It is. It is really, really cool.
Final question. At Travesty asks, what made the cast in the OG 84 work where the 2016 train wreck did not?
So I've had a lot of time to think about this.
Oh boy.
And I recently rewatched the 2016 movie because I wanted to know if it was something that got better with age. Sometimes that happens with films, right? You go in with a lot of the baggage of the conversations around it as you are watching it. It's unavoidable, and that kind of colors your opinion of a movie. So I watched it again, and while there are some funny moments, for the most part, I think it's just a bad movie. And I think it missed the point of what the Ghostbusters were, in that this felt like a studio that was trying to revive a franchise by getting the same formula and trying to make it work. So you had 4 very funny male comedians. Oh, wait, let's get 4 very funny female comedians who are all incredibly funny in their own right.
Yeah.
If you've seen them on SNL, they're fucking hilarious. Melissa McCarthy, her other movies are great. But in this one, I think it was just plagued with bad, generic writing.
Yeah.
And the heart wasn't there. And then, of course, it made really silly mistakes with regards to the only word I can think of is wokeness, because by casting Chris Hemsworth as a himbo secretary, it completely misses the point of who Janine was. Janine was never the bimbo of the team. Janine ran the show, and she was never portrayed as a bimbo in the films. And so all you end up having is a cheap joke at the expense of an all-female ghostbusting crew.
I agree. I think the problem was just purely bad writing. I think, you know what it is? It felt like they tried to replicate the original Ghostbusters, but in SNL form. None of the characters felt like real characters. They felt like caricatures of what a character is.
And every scene felt like it was setting up a sketch as opposed to having comedy that was innate to who these characters were.
Yes, correct.
Which is what made the original so good and so funny.
That's what makes funny movies funny. That's why even the early SNL skits that were made into films was because it didn't lean on the fact that it was a skit. The Blues Brothers. Yeah, it was a skit, but they took the time and the effort to write it like a film with all the requirements of what a movie needs and not just stringing together funny bits, which is what I felt the 2016 Ghostbusters did. And even then, they couldn't decide if they wanted it to be an SNL bit or be really serious, because when the ghosts show up, boy, does it get dark.
Like any conversation that happens regarding the 2016 Ghostbusters ends up being overwhelmed by the assholes and what they did by review bombing and sending nasty messages to the actors and all of that stuff. We need to learn how to ignore those assholes and then just not give them any coverage, even as media organizations.
Yeah.
Because that kind of promotes that toxicity. And I think what is lost in those conversations is that it was a mediocre movie. Meanwhile, if you look at Ghostbusters Afterlife, it is a female reboot of the Ghostbusters. So is Frozen Empire. There are all these other characters, but they really are all supporting characters to Phoebe. She is the lead of that movie. It is her story. She is the Ghostbuster.
I completely agree with you. I think this is the female reboot of Ghostbusters that I would have wanted. That I want. Yeah.
I think bad writing and trying to force something as opposed to telling an organic story. That was my big takeaway, even from the rewatch. Just very quickly, before we wrap up this episode of Ask Us Anything, we had two unrelated questions, which we thought we'd very quickly address. At Franzlow asks, with Star Wars Celebration coming to Tokyo next year, will we see the Goggler team making a trip there? I want to say, fingers crossed, if we can actually score tickets, because I think scoring tickets for that is like scoring tickets for Taylor Swift. So if we can get tickets, hell yeah, we want to go to Japan. That would be awesome.
We'll be there.
We'll be there.
Yeah.
And finally, at KoiKo9323, this is a question we get a lot. When are you guys going to have preview screenings in Penang? So very quickly, it's not up to us. It's up to the studios and the distributors and the cinemas, but we will bring it up with them. We know all of the preview screenings only happen in KL. We feel you, Penang people, and we'll bring it up with them and see what happens. But yes, thank you so much for your question.
Is there any way we can get the Penang people involved in this? Like, Koiko, if you're the only Penang listener listening to this, share this with your other Penang friends. If we were to do a screening there, would people come out? The concern is, if we were to do one in Penang, would you come out and support? Would there be an interest in it? If we get enough requests for it, maybe we'll do an unofficial premiere screening?
We're throwing the question back at ya, is what we're doing.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Well, thank you very much for tuning in to our special edition of Ask Us Anything, Ghostbusters edition. Don't forget, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire opens in Malaysian cinemas next Thursday, April 11th. Once you're done with your Raya visits, go check out the film. We really loved it. You can listen to our full review on the Goggler Podcast. This was a lot of fun. Check out Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. Don't forget to keep your questions coming in for us. Ask us anything. You know how to reach out. Goggler MY, all of our social media feeds. You can also email us on podcast@goggler.my or send us a WhatsApp on the Goggler hotline, 012-524-5208. Thank you so much for listening. This is the Goggler Podcast.